For nearly 40 years, America's AGM-114 Hellfire missile has been among the most accurate and widely used air-to-surface missiles in the world. But that's all about to change. Late last month, Lockheed Martin got approval to start full-rate production on a new missile that will replace America's existing inventories of two different types of Hellfires. Let's dive into the JAGM missile and why it represents the near-term future of warfare. I'm Alex Hollings, and this is Air Power. The Hellfire missile was born in the 1970s out of the pressing need for an effective anti-tank weapon for America's rotorcraft, like the new at the time AH-64 Apache. In fact, the name Hellfire actually began as an abbreviation for Heliborne Laser Fire and Forget Missile. And in a real way, that's exactly what the Hellfire became. Throughout various iterations of this missile over the years, it has consistently proven to be extremely reliable and highly accurate. In fact, the Hellfire missile has proven so effective over the years that it's been leveraged by a much wider variety of platforms and for a much broader variety of mission sets than ever envisioned back in its original Heliborne days. You can find Hellfire missiles in use on rotorcraft like the Apache they were intended for, as well as fixed-wing aircraft like the MQ-9 Reaper, not to mention boats and even ground vehicles. Hellfire missiles have proven so capable that they've even been leveraged for surface-to-air operations, despite being designed specifically for air-to-surface missions. And in a technological era where we're talking about $100 million hypersonic missiles and considering $2 to $3 million Tomahawks practically cheap, the latest iteration AGM-114R Hellfire missiles in production ring in at less than $150 grand a piece. The Hellfire is so accurate that it even led to the development of the AGM-114 R9X, which you probably know as the Hellfire full of swords. This missile, which is leveraged pretty exclusively by the CIA or America's Joint Special Operations Command, or JSOC, swaps out the 20-pound explosive warhead from the mid-portion of the missile's body for 6 deployable 18-inch blades that extend upon impact to allow the operator to take out a single high-value target without hurting anyone in the vicinity. The R9X is so accurate that it can be used to take out a person riding in the passenger seat of the vehicle while feasibly leaving those in the back seat unharmed, depending on how the vehicle comes apart anyway. Now, we don't actually know much about the R9X. It may not actually be a production missile at all. It could be a kit used to modify existing Hellfires. The two versions of the Hellfire missile that we know are in use with conventional forces today are the AGM-114R Hellfire 2, we commonly call that the Hellfire Romeo, and the AGM-114L Longbow, which we commonly call the Longbow. These two missiles actually share a great deal of commonality, including good portions of the body and even the warheads, but they differ dramatically when it comes to their targeting, which forces users to maintain separate inventories of each of these weapons. The AGM-179 JAGM, however, will replace both of these two specialized Hellfires. The Hellfire Romeo's DNA is more closely tied to its predecessors than the Longbow. It uses a highly accurate semi-active laser guidance system to deliver its explosive warheads to targets as far away as 7 miles or so. This weapon serves as the primary air-to-surface missile for a number of different platforms: the Army's Apache, the Marine Corps' Super Cobra, the Air Force's MQ-9 Reaper, and others. There used to be 3 different warheads to choose from with your Hellfire missiles, depending on whether you were going after armored targets like tanks, or soft targets like people or boats, or even hardened targets like bunkers. But starting in 2012, the US was able to dramatically reduce the logistical pull required of operating these missiles by fielding a new multi-purpose warhead that you could use for both hardened and soft targets. And now, both of the Hellfires in service, the Romeo and the Longbow, both leverage this multi-purpose warhead. Now, as I've mentioned a couple of times already, the other Hellfire missile stocking today's inventories is the AGM-114L Longbow, which swaps out that laser guidance system for a millimeter wave radar apparatus instead. And that allows this missile to offer high accuracy performance beyond line of sight, or in environments that could compromise the efficacy of laser guidance. Things like bad weather or heavy smoke. While the Romeo is widely considered to be the general-purpose air-to-surface weapon for the Army and the Marine Corps, the Longbow, with its radar guidance, is widely seen as the specialized tank killer of the two. But the Longbow went out of production in 2005, which means once existing inventories are exhausted, the US just doesn't have any more. But if you hate tanks, don't fret, because the AGM-179 Joint Air-to-Ground missile will actually replace both the Romeo and the Longbow, thanks to a new dual-mode seeker that actually combines both a semi-active laser and a millimeter wave radar sensor inside the same weapon. In order to better understand why this is a big deal, I sat down with the guy who's in charge of making it work. Lockheed Martin's program director for the Joint Air-to-Ground Missile, Joey Drake. Now, this guy really knows his stuff, but he's also not super comfortable with having his face plastered all over the internet. So he asked me to use the recording just to cite him, but not to actually show it in this video. So out of respect for his wishes, I'm not going to show you our conversation, but I will quote him a few times as we move forward. I asked Joey directly why we need a replacement for the Hellfire Romeo when it's clearly cost-effective and still very accurate. And he gave me a really succinct answer that hit the nail right on the head. He said, one missile, multiple platforms, multiple missions, for all services. And there's some real beauty to that simplicity that I'll dive into a bit more later. But let's start with how that simplicity benefits pilots and other operators of these missiles, because until now, they had to make a decision about how they were going to engage a target using one of the two Hellfire missiles at their disposal. The Romeo's laser targeting system is very accurate, when it's got direct line of sight anyway, but in bad weather or when the enemy employs active measures like a smoke screen to hinder targeting, the Longbow's millimeter wave radar is the more effective option. Now that might not sound like a very tough call, but you have to bear in mind that you may not be able to carry both of these missiles, which means you'll have to decide ahead of time what you think the environmental conditions will be when you arrive at your target. And you also have to consider the cognitive load that these pilots experience. Even if you're carrying both missiles on board, the split second that you have to decide between which to use, while simultaneously keeping tabs on potential threats, on friendly assets in the area, on your way in and your way out, and keeping your helicopter in the air, can all lead to diminished decision-making capabilities, regardless of how many slices you put into the pie chart that is your cognitive capacity. 100% is still all you've got. And with the dual-mode seeker in the JAGM, pilots can skip that combat calculus and just engage targets with the same missile regardless of the environment or situation. If the missile launches relying on its semi-active laser seeker to close with its target, and suddenly finds its view obscured by smoke, for instance, it'll just automatically switch over to the millimeter wave radar sensor without any input from the pilot and continue on to its original target. And because I love that ridiculous Heliborn acronym, let's remember that the Hellfire missile was always intended to be as fire and forget a weapon as possible. And by combining these two methods of targeting in one weapon, the JAGM really can be. I'll put it in Joey Drake's words. The millimeter wave capability allows us to ignore those things that try to distract us as we navigate our way to engage the target. So no matter what they do in terms of smoke or other feature sets that might be on those platforms to try to divert our attention, we ensure that the mission gets completed. So the JAGM gives pilots one less thing to worry about, and that's great. But let's also talk about how it makes things simpler every step of the way before then as well. Having one missile that can do the job of two isn't just handy in a fight, it's also a really big cost saver. The JAGM shares a great deal of system commonality with the Hellfire missiles that it's replacing, and that means that it can use existing Hellfire launchers, and the infrastructure that's already in place largely won't have to change. It also reduces the additional training requirements for ground crews and pilots as they put these weapons into service. I'll quote Joey Drake again. From a pure logistics perspective, that's one less missile in inventory that you have to logistically maintain. And because it's used across the various services, it enables those resources to be flexibly used within the battlefield. That last point is really important, because the benefits of adopting the JAGM over the Longbow and Romeo Hellfire missiles mirror the reasons NATO adopted the 5.56 round back in the 80s. A single round leveraged by all member nations just made it cheaper and easier to procure and distribute ammunition all throughout the alliance in the event of war, while increasing the interoperability of disparate national forces at the same time. If America needs more ammunition for the fight and Germany has a stockpile of it, it's a simple transfer, because both nations use the same rounds. The AGM-179 offers similar benefits within America's varied military branches. Deployed Army, Marine, and Air Force units all using the same missile system just drives down the logistical overhead. And development on the JAGM isn't done. Not only is Lockheed Martin working to double its effective range, but as this missile gets certified for more applications, it'll also replace the BGM-71 TOW anti-tank missile for ground platforms, not to mention the AGM-65 Maverick air-to-ground missile for fixed-wing assets. In a pinch, an Army Apache unit in need could even draw JAGMs from a nearby Air Force Reaper unit with a surplus, or vice versa, until more munitions could be delivered. Now, I'm not new to the internet. I understand that talking about the logistical strain of using multiple missiles for the same basic mission isn't the sexiest way to attract viewers here on YouTube. But the truth is, it's a really important topic that doesn't really get discussed enough. While hypersonic missiles and AI-enabled drones may draw the majority of the attention when it comes to new defense developments, it's systems like the AGM-179 JAGM that really offer a glimpse into the economically efficient near future of warfare. A large-scale conflict with a near-peer state like China is often thought of as the big game for exquisite and extremely expensive systems like $100 million boost glide missiles and sleek 6th-generation fighters. And you guys know me. You know that I would argue until I'm blue in the face that these technologies really do matter, because they do. But cutting edge means two things: expensive and rare. And those two combined mean that cutting edge technologies will have a limited use in such a large-scale fight. Let's use fighter aircraft as an example. In 2021, the US Air Force operated 272 F-35As. That's more stealth fighters than any other entire nation. But the vast majority of America's fighter fleets remain older 4th-generation jets, flying alongside those 272 F-35s for the Air Force were more than 450 F-15s between Eagles and Strike Eagles, and nearly 1,000 F-16s. Likewise, China has 1,800 total fighters, but just 150 or fewer are stealth jets, their J-20 Mighty Dragon. 800 or so are 4th-generation fighters, and the rest, more than another 800, are even older stock. As a side note, I did just compare Air Force fighter numbers to total Chinese fighter numbers, which isn't the best way to compare these two nations, but does still effectively show how many jets in these fights would be older platforms. We can see firsthand in the fighting in Ukraine that warfare in the first half of the 21st century looks a lot like warfare would in the latter half of the 20th. There's new technology making a real impact, but there's still just a large volume of old platforms in play. Winning a fight between developed industrial nations will really come down to the efficient use of your available systems. That means fielding updated and upgraded low-cost weapons, and finding new and creative ways to leverage existing systems is just as important as developing and fielding the next generation tech. Programs like the Air Force Research Lab's Rapid Dragon, which aims to leverage existing cargo aircraft to deploy large volleys of cruise missiles, or this one, the AGM-179 JAGM, bridge the gap between forward-leaning tech that's too expensive to field in volume right now, and legacy systems that are aging out of relevance. In large-scale war, financial attrition can be a devastating weapon, but with new systems like the JAGM, America can make sure it has the firepower it needs to win today's and even tomorrow's fights, while still developing the technology it needs to win the ones down the road. And with that ends another edition of Air Power from Sandboxx News. I'm Alex Hollings. Make sure you swing by sandboxnews.com today and every day for all the latest in news, entertainment, and motivation from all around the force. If you got anything out of today's video, make sure to click like and subscribe down below, and leave me a comment so I know what I should cover next. And of course, don't forget to tap on that bell icon so you never miss a drop from Sandboxx News.